I threw myself at him.
Šáhla prostě velice zbrkle na tu.
Děkuji pěkně.
Já se tam musím podívat, jestli to tam opravdu tam je.
A on ho druhý den měl.
He wore the angel on his wrist the following day.
Jako to mi maminka řekla, protože maminka to viděla. No tak takovýmhle trapasem.
And this made me famous.
Stala slavnou, protože já jsem ho opravdu měla.
So it was symbolic love.
Jak se tomu říká, když někdo někoho miluje symbolicky?
For her support for Dubček, Marta's voice was silenced for 19 years, and she was forced to take a series of menial jobs. The process of reversing the reforms and removing the reformers, including Dubček, was called normalization.
V lednu 70 mě zakázali.
I was banned from singing in January 1970.
Paní Kubišová, buďte rozumná, jde jenom o vyjádření podpory tomu.
The new regime kept saying that all they were asking me to do was to express my support for the normalization process.
Ten jeho projev v dubnu roku 69 jsem viděla a to mě připadalo,
But I couldn't do that because I realized that the Iron Curtain was being reinforced with a layer of concrete.
Utužila, že se teda železná opona, to jsem si říkala, to je betonová, železná. Ale
I knew the skies over Czechoslovakia had darkened.
Teda nad Československem tehdy.
It was the funeral of Jan Palach, a student who had set himself on fire in protest at the invasion, which symbolized the grief of a nation. This footage of the funeral was shot by Stanislav Milota, a feature film cameraman.
I filmed all of Palach's funeral from the start until they put him in the grave. It was an incredible experience being with the people. Suddenly I felt proud to live among them. It was a once-in-a-lifetime feeling.
The police hunted for the footage which Milota smuggled out of the country. But with hardline communists back in charge of Czechoslovakia, filming such events did not go unpunished.
I got a letter stating that I was among the main participants in filming the events directed against the party, and therefore I couldn't continue as a cameraman, and I couldn't do anything else either. When I discovered the world of film, I knew it was the love of my life. So when you lose all that, it's as if someone close to you dies.
In the weeks and months that followed Palach's funeral, around 500,000 lost their jobs and became non-persons. The Communist Party purged its ranks of 500,000 members. Others resigned.
Vydržel jsem tam až do roku 68.
I stayed in the party until 1968, when I grew brave enough.
Tam čekalo, ať to byl.
And there were my colleagues, directors and producers, sitting before the party organisation, whose members were crossing out and ticking names.
Oni vylučovali, anebo vyškrtávali prostě to. Šel jsem ještě s dvěma klukama a říkal.
I said enough. I took my party card and threw it at their feet. And since then I haven't wanted to have anything to do with communism.
After the Soviet occupation, our bosses wanted to destroy the negative and all copies of All My Good Countrymen. They just wanted to burn it.
All My Good Countrymen was banned forever by the Communist Party. Its director was ordered to denounce the film publicly. But he chose to follow over 100,000 fellow Czechoslovaks into exile.
A řekl mi, Vojtěchu, já tě už dále nemůžu chránit.
My boss at the film studio said, Wojciech, I can't protect you anymore. That's out of the question. You will start to collaborate or you will go to prison. You will express support for the Soviet invasion. You will retract everything. You will say, All My Good Countrymen is your worst movie, in the press, on radio and TV. That meant my moral death. You had to leave if you didn't want to die morally, which is worse than dying physically.
Ostrava, the coal and steel heartland of the communist utopia. The city, its environment and its people have been the subject of Victor Kola's photographs all his working life. But after 1968, Victor's pictures document what became known as the era of forgetting. Conformity replaces belief. Instead of hope, there is cynicism.
I found that the people were different. The aspect of fear, that grey look, the deadening of people's energies, the stagnation in people's lives. The fact that intelligence was pushed into a corner. I saw all these things. I saw these anonymous people who came there and sat down, ornamental bows on the handrails to cover the rust. And the guy who's hidden behind the decorations, but who has a comic suit, sneakers, and a hat which is covering his eyes. In this picture, I captured what I thought was the atmosphere during normalization. A park, uncared for surroundings, the routine of people going to work. The young man, a bit like John Travolta in a leather jacket. The older worker. The soldier leaning against a tree, which could mean hopelessness. The routine, the ossification. It was a moment when the essence of a whole way of life is revealed.
Přichází Marie teď, prosím tě, teď děláš výborný. Marie!
No, už jsem tady.
Humour also provided a different perspective on life under communism. Jaroslav Dolecek, an economist at a collective farm, made comedy films that exposed the gap between socialist rhetoric and reality.
I was making fun of them and they realized that.
U mě to přecházelo v satiru, poněvadž něco
I made fun of things that interested me in everyday life, and I turned it into satire.
His targets included collective farms, the black economy, and political apparatchiks. But making fun of the communists carried a personal price tag for Dolecek.
Jeden můj kluk chtěl na školu.
One of my sons wanted to study at university, but they refused to accept him.
Chtěl jít na školu, no a najednou jsem se dozvěděl, že není.
There was a note which said the reason was because his father made anti-Soviet films.
Proti sovětské filmy.
A bribe to a senior communist official was now required to reverse this situation.
Tak jsme se dohodli, já říkám,
I came to an agreement with this party boss.
Jak to bude platit? Jak to chceš zaplatit? On říká,
I asked him how much he wanted to be paid.
Tam dělají ty krajky.
He said, "You are from Bamberg. You make lace there, beautiful lace, and my daughter is getting married. So why don't you pay for her lace dress?